Hi, IBC family. Welcome to Midweek Devotions. So, this week I want to talk to you guys about pressing in to your prayer time. Pastors said something Sunday that really resonated with me, and they talked about pressing into prayer, truly seeking God and pressing in. And immediately I was reminded of Esther. So, I just wanted to share some thoughts regarding pressing in and prayer time and why it's so vital. So, here's some nuggets I wanted to pull out of Esther. First of all, with the story of Esther, you have Esther's a Jew. She kept that quiet and to herself because her cousin Mordecai told her to. But you have a king who ruled the land who got really frustrated with his wife, pretty much divorced her, said he needs a new wife. And Esther was one of the people that was paraded in front of him, and she was chosen, and she became his wife. So she's now queen. She has not told him of her lineage and that she is a Jew, but she's living in the palace and leading the life of a queen. So Mordecai comes to Esther, her cousin, and suddenly tells Esther the king has signed this proclamation that he's going to basically wipe out all the Jews. He's going to kill every single one of them, right? So suddenly her people are going to be wiped off the face of the earth. And Mordecai tells Esther what's happening. There's a crisis going on in the nation, right? Kind of sounds like nowadays, doesn't it? There's a crisis going on. And God's people are in this moment where the future doesn't look the best. So that's where we're going to pick up in our story. So Mordecai tells Esther that her people are going to be wiped out. And Esther takes this news, and instead of just diving in and making a plan, instead of finding all her friends to talk to, instead of being fearful, she did what the pastors had talked about on Sunday. She pressed into God in her prayer time. She made it a point to seek God and to press in. It says, Esther said, "Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I also and my maids will fast as you do. Then I will go to the king." So Esther spent 3 days pressing into God and truly seeking him on behalf of her nation. She not only pressed into God to gather strength in his presence, but she pressed into God for answers. She needed to know what the next step was going to be, didn't she? I mean, she was facing some crazy information. She was basically facing genocide, the loss of all her people, including her own life. And she needed to know what the right time was going to truly be. I mean, Esther truly needed to know what the right place is at the right time with the right people, and she needed to be doing the right thing. And sometimes in the middle of our season or our walk or our storm or just in the middle of our day, we're trying to jump in and solve things and fix problems and plan A, B, C, or D. And what we really need to do is just stop and press into God and pray, right? So I really enjoy this quote by Joyce Meyer. She said, "Prayer is the way we partner with God to see his plans and purpose come to pass in our lives and in the lives of those we love." Prayer is how we partner with God. Prayer is a topic that I'm really trying to dive into for my devotion time. There's so much that can come out of prayer, and there's so much to prayer, but I really love the thought of prayer being a partnership. It's in the middle of my season, my storm, just in the middle of my day, when I'm going through some stuff. When I stop and take the time to just press in and pray and talk to God, I'm partnering with him in that moment in my day. And so with Esther, it's important to see that it wasn't just a one and done prayer with Esther. It wasn't, well, I spent the day and nothing happened, right? It's, no, she pressed in. She poured her focus into her prayer time with God. She needed answers, and she was going to stay in his presence until she got those answers. So when you press into God and seek him, when you fervently pray, God hears and he responds. It is in our prayer time that we can tune into his voice and hear him speak to us, right? James 5:16 says, "The earnest, heartfelt, continued prayer of a righteous man makes tremendous power available, dynamic in its working." That is what pressing in during your prayer time does for you. It makes tremendous power available. The last thing I wanted to touch on was how her patience produced power. She patiently waited until she had her answer. She didn't just say, well, I did this and I did that, but nothing happened. She had her answer. She didn't give up. She didn't lose hope. She tried it in her own power. She didn't just try in her own power, but she just waited. She waited on the Lord, and he guided her steps. Her timing, if you know the story of Esther, was a life and death moment. It really was. It was a life and death moment. It was all about her timing. But her patience and basking in the presence of God brought her the confidence she needed, brought the favor of God to change the rules, regulations, and policies that were governing at that time. Because at that time, the law was if you walked in to see the king and he didn't ask for you, they're going to kill you right there in front of him. Unless he holds out his scepter and you touch it, then you're kind of forgiven for breaking that rule. So that's the decision she was facing. That's the timing that she was facing. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Exodus 14:14 says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." In a moment of panic, hearing what Esther heard, because that's a lot of information, instead of scrambling to figure it all out, she was still in God's presence, knowing he would fight for her, right? He would ensure the safety of herself and her people. She knew that. I encourage you this week, if you need answers, if you need guidance, if you need help, you need restoration, healing, if you want to see change in this nation, then press in and pray. Esther pressed into God and spent time praying and seeking him, and it produced a decision that changed the fate of a nation. That's huge. The Passion says this of James 5:16. Tremendous power is released through the passionate, heartfelt prayer of a godly believer. Your prayer can change the fate of a nation, the fate of your loved ones, and the path that you are on. So press in and seek God. Have a great week.